Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and we're here once again to answer the question so stealthy that it can only be detected by LIDAR. Is it worth it? Today we're going to be taking a look at Scanner Sombre, a first-person walking simulator game by Introversion Software, and we're once again going to be doing this not as a Let's Play style impressions video, but as a narrative review, as the game itself did not want to play nicely with my standard recording software, and with a game such as this, there's really very little to keep a narrative going, and it would have been supremely uninteresting to watch in that format anyways. So what is Scanner Sombre? Well, as I said, it is a walking simulator, pure and simple. The game focuses on your character leaving a tent and picking up a LIDAR gun and a pair of goggles. The LIDAR gun allows you to paint the walls of your surroundings and see where you're going as you attempt to navigate your way through what seems to be the depths of the Underdark. And this was a very interesting premise, and I found myself getting drawn in for a time. Now, there was a definite personal investment in the basic act of discovery within the game that I found difficult to ignore. However, that and all the pretty colors were about the only positive thing I could find to say about the game. Now, before I go on, I will do my best to avoid spoilers in the game, which will be kind of hard to do because there's not really much else to talk about. For any of those that choose to play the game, the story's lackluster payoff at the end is the only real reward, and I wouldn't dare take even that minor thing away from you for suffering through this game until the end. So, Scanner Sombre is very much a game about discovery, as I said, but the problem is, there's nothing really there to discover. And the game does try to hold your interest by introducing an exceptionally basic and cookie-cutter text-based narrative in order to simply remind you that there's a purpose in continuing forward, if nothing else. And in addition to that, the game does attempt to make use of some jump scares at certain points within the game. But they're so cheap and poorly done that they were more of an irritant than anything else. And they certainly weren't scary, like, at all. Not a bit. Not even a touch. Honestly, I almost fell asleep at one moment. That's how scary the jump scares were. And no, that's not an overstatement or blowing things out of proportion. I honestly almost fell asleep for a moment. Now, in a video game with pretty sparkling lights, I almost nodded off. That's how uninteresting this game was for me. Now, laying that aside, though, get it back on topic before I go off on a tangent and turn this into a rant. The game clocked in at about 2.5 hours for my first complete playthrough, and that was after I spent far more time lighting up areas than I really needed to. In actuality, the game's approximate runtime for most people is going to be in the 2-hour range, which for a game that is $12 is asking a lot. Oh, but after you beat the game, there's a new Game Plus mode that lets you start off with all the upgrades for your LIDAR that you collected through the game, in addition to one other thing that I won't mention because it will spoil the ending, which isn't much of a payoff, but I'll admit that it is at least some form of payoff. Now, I do have to say that the game is, for the most part, stable. I noticed no real frame drops or dips right up until the last 10 to 15 minutes of the game. Then, I'm not sure what the hell happened, but the game's performance absolutely tanked. It began hitching every few seconds, and the frame rate started going all over the place. It seems like perhaps they did do QA testing, but stopped short just at the end. Also, the options menu was completely lacking audio sliders, and I hate to say the oft-used phrase, but this is current year, and such an oversight should simply not happen. Now, in short, the game was dull, short, and overhyped, but at least all the pretty lights, am I right? Now, with zero replay value and almost no payoff whatsoever, I would rate this game a 5 out of 10, if numbers actually meant something at all. So, just to be a pain in that regard, I'm actually going to give it a final verdict of 5 out of 7, meaningless, just like Scanner Sombre itself. Now, trust me, there are far better games out there for you to spend $12 on, and I suggest you go pick up one of them. I have no idea how or why this game is getting so many positive scores on Steam, but I most certainly cannot recommend it to you guys. There's just not enough there. And the problem is, with this particular game, I honestly believe that with the way everything was related to you as a player, it was actually a blessing that the game was so short. If it went on even longer, the game would have just devolved into pure tedium. I think it ran the risk of overstaying its welcome at its current play length. So, yeah, the subsequent playthrough is definitely not something I will be taking on. But don't let me be the final judge and jury on this game. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And while you're at it, please do like and share. And if you're new to the channel, punch that subscribe button like it was your worst enemy. Trust me, it deserves the abuse. And if you feel like doling out some more arbitrary justice, there are links to my Patreon, Twitter, and Facebook, and others down in the description down below. Make sure you give them the same level of punishment you inflicted on the subscribe button. They've earned it. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. I do apologize for the shortness of this video, by the way, but the game was so damn short I really didn't have anything else to talk about. It's not my fault, I swear. It was the game. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.